The individual extreme spreads of the 5 groups were 22, 3, 12, 4, and 10. Damn good. And the groups again were 764, 734, 713, 703, and 637. That is what we're looking for. That is a consistent load. Now, I've gone on and on about how we're not trying to shoot the tiniest groups. I could do what some other guys do and just load burgers and shoot these tiny little itty bitty groups. That's not hard to do. But as you guys know, we don't promote those bullets for hunting. Not because they won't kill stuff, but anyway, we've been over this. It's just, I'm trying to show you guys, I'm trying to teach you guys something. I'm not trying to impress you. That's not the purpose of this. I could do that, but that's not why we're doing this. I'm trying to teach you guys what to look for and what is adequate and what you should be trying to achieve, so that, because you going out, everybody watching this video going out and pounding groups like where we started, where that first group would have been a 146. That's not realistic for 90% of you. I'm trying to show you guys what is realistic and what you should be looking for and what you should be hoping to achieve. And if you do this, if you find something that shoots that's averaging 0.7, like 3/4 MOA all the time, what you can then do with that and what it's really capable of, and that you can shoot longer ranges than you probably think you can. You don't need to pound them all in the same hole to shoot 500 yards. It's just not reality. Hey guys, this is Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today's the day. It's finally time to talk about the 28 Nosler saga and go through the ins and outs of that and all the trials and tribulations we had with this gun. I am abbreviating it a little bit just because there was a lot of testing I did in the middle of the process that I was trying to figure out if the barrel was just fouled out and I needed to clean it or whatever, but I'll explain that when we get to it. But first, as always, I'd like to say thank you to you guys for all your consistent support and just following everything along and all the support you're giving us, both through sales on the website, rifle builds, stuff like that, but also watching these videos and commenting and contributing. So I think we'll start out by looking at the group that we started with and then kind of where we went from there. Oh, and I was going to mention too that we just launched that video on the 7PRC Barnes Vortex 160 grain LRX ammo, and that video is going crazy. Already has like 600 views in the first 2 hours, so that's getting a lot of attention. But anyway, I think we'll start with looking at the group that we started with. Remember, we had a load that shot really well with Rotumbo, and then I wanted to make sure that it was in the happiest place that it could be, so I did a seating depth test to make sure that I was in the best spot, and then we tested from there, and I'll go into all the ins and outs of what we dealt with. So I think I'll get the screen recording fired up here. 3, 2, 1. And we're live. Okay, so this you guys have already seen. This was the first group that we shot during our initial testing. So we did our 10-shot ladder tests, picked sweet spots, went out and shot those. And this was the faster of the 2 Rotumbo sweet spots. This is how it shot first time. So basically 10 rounds of load development, take it out, bang. This is how it shoots. 3309, SD is 6.7, ES is 16, shot a 533. Very good. But then I wanted to take it out and make sure that I wasn't on a really narrow node or sweet spot for the seating depth, and make sure I was in a comfortable place that it wasn't going to get erratic on me. So I went out and did a seating depth test, and this was before we ever decided we were even going to do a series on anything on this rifle or the 4 different cartridges or whatever. So went out and shot the seating depth test. There's a lot to see here. So the seating depth test, so I guess we'll start with this on the right. This was basically some sighters that were loaded with the lower Rotumbo sweet spot that I brought just to make sure I had a decent zero and I was going to be able to keep all the shots on the board. And then the seating depth test is this bottom row and this top row. And the stuff in the middle, you remember from the original picture that from the start of the 7mm Showdown series. I'll talk about those in a minute. But the seating depth test was these bottom row of dots, excluding this one in the corner, and then this top row. And what I did was pick a seating depth to start with, and then I tested every 3 thousandths of an inch, 0.003. You know, I know some guys test in 5 thousandths increments, 10,000, 15, 20, whatever. There's a lot of different ways to do it, in my opinion, even for a hunting rifle. Like if the bullet's completely new to you and you have a lot of bearing surface, you could do like what Berger recommends, where they recommend seating it, basically seating it as long as you can, and then testing 30,000 shorter, 60,000 shorter, 90,000 shorter, 120,000 shorter, 150,000 shorter. There's like giant jumps, so you can kind of get an idea of where it wants to be. I haven't found that method to be particularly effective, but some people do that, and then other people will test in 5 thousandths increments. In my opinion, for a hunting rifle, I think you should use the Hornady lock and load overall length tools and measure the ogive always. Figure out where touch is. Those Hornady tools, you know, if you do it, here comes a tangent. So if you use those Hornady tools and you push the bullet out till it makes contact with the barrel, that's going to give you touch, basically, where you're not jamming. You are in the lands a little bit, but you're not jamming. And I would call that touch or your starting point, and then I would always seat shorter from that point. So even for a hunting rifle, I test in 3 thousandths increments. I test every 3 thousandths. For bench rest guns, I usually test every 2 thousandths. Some guys test every 1 thousandth. Then people have different opinions on that. It is effective when you get guns shooting that small. You will see a difference testing every 1,000th or every 2 thousandths. But anyway, so tested every 3 thousandths, and the anomalies you're seeing on here where I wrote the number 3, that was the third shot that I fired. Oh, and I should mention that I shot these round robin, and I try to do all my testing round robin. Sometimes I don't if I'm trying to test something specific, like the first 3 shots from a cold bore of a hunting rifle or something, but when I'm evaluating the ammo, like still in the evaluation process, I try to test everything round robin. So you see down here on the right where I started, I shot 1 shot there, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, shot 1 of everything, then I shot the second one, second, and came all the way back down. And then the ones that were tight that I thought showed promise, I committed the 3rd round. Now, somewhere in here, we're using 2-piece muzzle brakes, and somewhere in here, between the end of the 2nd round and the start of the 3rd round, the muzzle brake came loose, and I didn't catch it. So all these that have the number 3 next to them, those were all the 3rd shot. Well, somewhere in there the brake came loose, and that's why it started spraying the 3rd one out. And I've seen that kind of thing happen before. I didn't think about it at the time, so I shot all the 3rd shots, and then I'm like, well, how did all of these fall apart? Or almost all of them. So then I reach up and grab the brake, and it's loose. So I'm like, shit. All right, well, if we eliminate the 3rd shot and just focus on the first 2, here's what you should be looking for in an optimal situation when you do a seating depth test. If you can find it, if you can get it, this is what you're after. If you notice these where the two shots are, think about where their average point of impact location is. Okay, so the average here is down here. Then it moves, so it's below the circle, left of the circle, 8 o'clock on the circle, 11 o'clock on the circle. If we're eliminating the third shot, 9 o'clock, center of the circle, 8 o'clock again, noon, 11, 10, noon, 11. So you see that? Those 4 in a row are hitting pretty much in the same place. They're at the exact same elevation, which at long range, that's what you're looking for. You don't want to be in a seating depth window that has a lot of height variation where it's going like this. You want them all to be the same elevation, because that's going to translate to very flat groups at distance. If they shift a little bit left and right, that doesn't really matter, because in the big picture, when you shoot it at long range, that's going to get swallowed up in the fact that you can't read the wind perfectly, so you're never going to see that. You are going to see the height difference, though. If it's, moving up, and if the pairs are moving up and down, like let's say you get 4 in a row that shoot tight, but they're going up and down and up and down, that's not ideal. That's not as good as this, where they're all at the same height. See that? This one, this one, this one, and this one. The average height is identical. That's what you want. And all 4 in a row shot tight, other than, these that got thrown because the muzzle brake was loose. So when I see that, I know it's going to shoot. And the fact that these got thrown out here, once I realized the brake was loose, I'm like, oh, that's why those got thrown out there. I'm not going to worry about that at all. I'm going to pick right here where I put this pen mark. What you do is you take the longest seating depth that shot well, and you seat just shorter than that. If you guys ever saw Eric Cortina's Chasing the Lands is Stupid, that's what this is. You find the longest seating depth that shoots well and subtract 1,000th, and that's what you load. So that's what I did. Came home, loaded up 10 of those or whatever the number is at that seating depth with the original charge weight, came back and shot these groups. So for this, I got some data here for this ladder test. 32 shots fired. This shows you how stable this load is. 32 shots fired. Average was 33.30. Smoking. SD at 10.4, ES of 41. Now the only reason it's as high as 41 is I was starting basically right up against the rifling. So the velocity of these early seating depths was higher than the rest of them. Like, I didn't have to get very far away from the rifling and the velocity came down, and then it stayed there basically the rest of the test. So SD at 10.4, ES of 41. Seating depth forgiveness, 9 thou plus. So this shot well. We don't know at what point going this way it shot well. If it would have shot well for another 1,000th or 2,000ths, we don't know. Same with this end. We don't know if we could have went another 1,000th or 2,000ths before it blew apart, but we have at least 9 there. If you're in 3,000th increments and you have 4 in a row that shot well, that's a 9,000th window, which that's a huge window. Usually if you're lucky, you're going to get like 4 to 6,000ths, where you can be anywhere in that 4 to 6,000ths window and it shoots good. You get it out to 9,000ths plus where it shoots like that, that's a huge window. So not only is it huge, that there's no elevation change, and they all shot tight. Like, this is ideal circumstances for what you would look for in a seating depth test. So I saw that, I'm like, this thing's gonna hammer. Go home, load up 10 rounds, come back. I did come down a click. This was my cold bore shot, because it was at the top of the circle before. I came down a click or two, came back, laid down, set up the lab radar, cold bore shot. Bingo, right there. You guys have seen this. It's on the thumbnail for the Showdown intro. And I was like, all right, there's my cold bore. I'm going to go over and shoot 3 more. Shots 2, 3, and 4. So had I just done the cold bore and put the second and third over here, the first 3 shots would have been a 146. We're done. We have nothing left to gain here. But this group, so the cold bore was 3306, and then this group of 3 was 3325, SD a 9.3, ES a 21, and it shot a 427. So if you look at that, the first shot was, the cold bore was 3306. The others were like all in the 3330, 33. I think the ES of the other 3 was like 7 or something. These next 3, or I mean the oh no, so that was 21. Yeah, okay, never mind. I'm getting mixed up. So 3325, 9.3, 21, 427. Damn good. So then I was like, all right, I'll let it cool off a little bit. And this was in January, so it didn't take long. It was freezing. Shot it again. Same day. So you see my notes over here. Those 3, it was these 3 in a row, right? So shot the cold bore, shot that group, shot that group. See, it did shift down a 1/2 inch. I didn't do that. That was just the gun. Shifted down a 1/2 inch. But again, 3328, what was the last one? 3325. I mean, you talk about stable. 3328, SD a 1.2, ES a 3, shot a 453. So between the ladder test, or the seating depth test, and shooting these groups is when Dale and I decided to do the series. And so when I came out and shot these, I literally shot the cold bore, shot these 3 shots, shot these 3 shots, and then sat down and filmed that intro video. I was like, all right, here we go. That was all in the same day. So then the next time, then I started working on the other guns and getting other stuff together and doing those technical videos and whatever. Well, then by the time I came back out and shot this load, which it hammers, you know, but I was like, well, I'll come out and shoot the factory ammo. We picked up that Nosler 175 long range AccuBond factory ammo. I went out and shot that, and it shot okay. And I was like, well, on the same day, to be fair, I'll shoot this again. I didn't get velocity data. I think I did get a couple shots, but the Labrador was missing almost everything that day. I didn't have it aligned right or something, but anyway, shot a 1.172, and this was a couple months later. It had warmed up, you know, because I think this load was on the very ragged edge, like way at the top. Because if I went any higher, I'd get a clicker, you know, when I tried to lift the bolt. So then it warmed up a little bit. Blew apart just over 1 MOA. And I shot 2 groups. The second group, 1.246. And here's where I'm going to abbreviate the saga. It devolved quickly after that. I was like, well, maybe it's just a bad day. Went out and shot it again. It was even worse. Took it out and shot it again. It was even worse. Scrubbed the barrel down to bare steel. Went out, fouled it in, shot it again. Still shot horrible. It's just because it's warming up, you know, as I'm going through the spring and into the summer, it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So that load that was already on the ragged edge, it was just too overpressure. Remember what I was telling you guys in the series, like you get too close to the top, it doesn't take much, and it can start spraying them. You know, like if the load's happy with the conditions you're shooting it in, it can shoot unbelievable. But if the conditions change, they can completely fall apart. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't think it was the barrel. You know, now that I've had time to shoot it some more, I don't think it was the barrel. I think it was just that load was too close to the ragged edge, and when it warmed up, that was enough to push it over the edge. So shot terrible. So then eventually, after I shot the other guns a whole bunch and did a bunch more of the series and a bunch of videos, I was like, all right, I got to come back and revisit this thing so we know where the hell we're going with it. So what I did was I came back and I shot all the 5 original sweet spots. I shot them again. So now it's warmer, it's summer. I'm like, I'm just going to go shoot them again, all of them. I'll just do 2 shots of each and see, now that it's warmer, if any of them show promise. And this is, so when I shot them originally, they were at X seeding depth. Then I did the seeding depth test. Well, when I came back and shot these again, shot these pairs of 2, it was at the new seeding depth, not the original one. So that, I'm sure that had an effect as well on the fact of they're shooting differently now that it's warmer, but they're also at a different seeding depth. Same charge weight, whatever. So H1000, if you remember, that didn't shoot well at all. Well, now it shot a 448, this pair. Pretty good. The slower Retumbo, which didn't shoot very well, came back, shot a 316. Really good. The faster Retumbo, see how bad that got? Like, when I said it devolved, this is the one that was driving tacks back here that was shooting like this in January. Change nothing. Shoot it 5 months later. 2 inches for 2 shots. You're out of here. Yikes. And then the N565, the slower one, shot terrible. Just under 2 inches. But the faster one, which was at the same velocity as this faster Retumbo load, all of a sudden came to life. 237. So then I went out and I was like, okay, the H1000 shot well, the slower Retumbo shot well, and the faster N565 shot well. I'll take those out and I'll load up 3 shots of each and take them out and shoot a group. And I can't seem to locate that group data for whatever reason. I have the velocity data, but I can't find the groups. But this faster N565 was the winner that day. So that's the one I pursued. So then I loaded up some more of them, took them out. I think I loaded up 6 more and shot 2 groups. This is later, in the summer. This probably wasn't that long ago, maybe. What is it now? It's October now. This was probably in August, maybe. 2 together, 1 out. 33-24, right where the faster Ragged Edge Retumbo load was shooting. But remember I said N565 produced more velocity than Retumbo and pressured out higher. So this is still at the top, but it's not as close to the Ragged Edge as Retumbo was. 33-24, SD 9, ES 22, 764. 2 together, 1 out. Just fine. Second group, which this is the 4th time I shot it in total, but second group of my final verifications. 3315, SD 1.4, ES 3, group 734. Nice little triangle. Fifth group, 3299, and this included the cold bore shot, which I think was why the average was a little low. SD 4.9, ES 12, 713. Still very stable. How many is that in a row? 3, 2, 3. 6th group, more of the same. 3316, SD 1.6, ES 4, 703. And these groups I shot for Dale just before I took it out and shot it at long range for the series, but also to make sure it was squared away and I could true the drop data and all that stuff, because he was going to take it out and try to dump an elk again with it for the second time. So this last group, 3312, SD 4.7, ES 10, shot a 637. So the summary of those, the grand aggregate, these last 5 groups that we just reviewed, 5 groups of 3, fired on 2 different days, includes 2 cold bore shots, which I think is why the ES is as high as it is, but the average was, and the average is lower than it really is, because there's a couple cold bore shots in there. 3313, SD 9.6, extreme spread of 43 for 15 shots. Pretty good. The individual extreme spreads of the 5 groups were 22, 3, 12, 4, and 10. Damn good. And the groups again were 764, 734, 713, 703, and 637. That is what we're looking for. That is a consistent load. Now, you know, I've gone on and on about how we're not trying to shoot the tiniest groups. We could. I could do what some other guys do and just load burgers and shoot these tiny little itty bitty groups. That's not hard to do. But as you guys know, we don't promote those bullets for hunting. Not because they won't kill stuff, but anyway, we've been over this. It's just, I'm trying to show you guys, I'm trying to teach you guys something. I'm not trying to impress you. That's not the purpose of this. I could do that, but that's not why we're doing this. I'm trying to teach you guys what to look for and what is adequate and what you should be trying to achieve, so that, you know, because you going out, everybody watching this video going out and pounding groups like where we started, where that first group would have been a 146. That's not realistic for 90% of you. I'm trying to show you guys what is realistic and what you should be looking for and what you should be hoping to achieve. And if you do this, if you find something that shoots that's averaging 0.7, like 3/4 MOA all the time, what you can then do with that and what it's really capable of, and that you can shoot longer ranges than you probably think you can. You don't need to pound them all in the same hole to shoot 500 yards. It's just not reality. So our max, if you remember from the technical video, our max group, which is a 764, that's the biggest one, was 0.730 MOA, which keeps us under, that keeps us in our 600 yard bucket. And that was, remember, this data here, where to shoot 600 yards effectively and stay on our 17 by 12 oval, you needed to stay under 3/4 MOA with an ES of 50, which we did, but that was also assuming that the velocity was 3,050 feet a second. This is almost 300 feet a second faster than that. And I didn't figure out how far that extends your effective range, but it's fairly significant. And we'll go into it later in the series, so don't worry, I'll figure that out for you guys. But when we do the big conclusion at the end, we'll go into all that. So that's what you need to be effective at that distance, provided you have the skill to read wind adequately and whatever. This is, I didn't do a linear path for this because there wasn't one. This is more, I'm guessing this is more how everyone's normal load development goes, where you start doing something, you get into something, and then it falls apart, and then you go here and there and everywhere else, and like, this was the problem child. I think it's just because I settled on something, again, because I settled on something that was too close to the ragged edge when it was cold out, and then tried to shoot it more when it was warm, and that's what derailed the whole thing. Now looking back, I really don't think it was the gun, just because of how consistent this was, this N565. You know, it's not pounding little holes, but again, this seating depth wasn't figured out on this charge weight. This is the Retumbo seating depth, so there might have been more to wring out of this, you know, considering that the Retumbo blew apart to friggin' 2 inches here. You know, that just tells us that that load's not stable. The fact that it can still, even though it shot a 2-inch whatever, and 3 minutes later it shot a pair at 237, well, that tells me that the gun's sound. It's not the gun, it was that load. And then when I came out and shot group after group after group after group under 3/4 MOA, it ain't the gun, it was the load. So I didn't want to go around, screw around and go back and do a whole nother seating depth test for this, because there wasn't any value in that, you know, and for what we're trying to teach you guys, that like, I maybe could have done a seating depth test and got these pounding little holes too, but that doesn't teach you guys anything. You are already going to learn about a seating depth test and what to do for that by this slide. So me doing it again and getting them to pound little holes, that doesn't offer any value. So I didn't do it. It was shooting 3/4 steady, and I'm like, screw it, that's good enough. Because it is. So that's all I have for this one. That was, I guess, an abbreviated version of the saga. Well, it looks like I kept the screen recording under, or the whole recording under half an hour. So that's that. So that's what we took out and stretched out at long range, as well as the Nosler factory ammo. That's all we did was the Nosler factory ammo and this M565 load. I did shoot that Rotumbo load at Steel in the winter when it was shooting good, but I don't think I got pictures of the targets, and it wasn't ideal testing circumstances, so I don't have any of that data. But at any rate, this is what we stretched out, and I did shoot it quite a bit at long range because I was trying to calibrate a drop chart for Dale to take out west. So I shot it a little more than I otherwise would have, and on Steel and whatever, just verifying everything and making sure I had all the bugs wore out. But you guys will see that on the long range video for the 28 Nosler. But I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to cover with this one. So we successfully brought the 28 Nosler back from the dead and got it performing more than adequately. So thank you guys. Thanks for checking this out and sticking with me on the series. I know this has taken a lot longer than I told you it would in the beginning, but appreciate your patience and your loyalty, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.